Welcome to the Beyond Atheism podcast with me, Nathan Alexander, and my co-host, Todd Tavares. Moving beyond questions of God's existence, this podcast asks, what's next in a world without God? If you're enjoying the show so far, make sure to like and subscribe, rate and review, and consider supporting us on Patreon.
Hi, everybody. It's a slightly different format this week. It's just Nathan and I. We're going to start thinking some deep thoughts. Just a conversation between the two of us on death. A nice light topic. Nathan, what made you think of this topic?
Well, nothing in particular, but I do think it's an interesting topic. I think we've asked a couple of times on Can a True Atheist, I think, whether a true atheist can fear death, I believe. And I think I wanted to talk about it more just because I think it's like, maybe it's fear of death is one reason, maybe.
Is it hanging over your head these days?
No.
Oh, thank
No,
goodness.
there's no reason. No. I mean, there's nothing necessarily personal, but I do think, like could be one reason, like why people might hope for a god or an afterlife or something. Um, So I think it's interesting to talk about.
It is interesting. But do you really feel that a lot of religion comes from that sort of urge to deny death or transcend death?
Maybe. I mean, I think for me, I this is like jumping ahead maybe, but I feel like I am like somewhat not it's hard to say. I mean, not afraid of death, but like it's kind of frightening to think about, I think.
Yeah.
Like to
You
think
don't
about.
want it, is the thing.
No. Well, but then the thing is like it's going to happen anyway,
Yeah.
whether we want it or not.
Yeah.
And I can feel like it would be reassuring superficially if there were a god and an afterlife, and death was not the end.
Nathan, let's dig into this a little more. Why are
Yeah,
you
okay.
afraid of death?
I think for me it's just very weird to contemplate like not existing. And the thing is that I think it's scary because it's not just you're not existing for a couple weeks or a year. You're not existing for the rest of eternity.
Yeah.
You'll never exist again, ever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, I don't. It's like you don't want to be. I don't want to be
Yeah.
morbid or depressing or anything. But I mean, but that's the that's the fact.
That is
Um,
true.
so when you kind of like really contemplate it, I feel like it's can be quite frightening and overwhelming. And so I actually try not to think about it too often.
Really? Do you find
Uh,
have you ever gotten the sense that it is a stumbling block to atheism, or it's a problem for atheists that we don't have an easy, pat answer to our utter annihilation in death?
hmm, I feel like it's not like a logical problem for us. I mean, I think, for me, I accept that like how I described is how things will be. I mean, it's not satisfying, but I mean, but there's plenty of things
Yeah.
that are true that are not satisfying, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah.
So I mean, I do think, but it could be a stumbling block, maybe for other people, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, God, of course, death is scary. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's
Uh-huh.
it's the worst thing. But to one thing we can do is kind of reverse the way that you put it. Right? We exist now. We exist until date X, and then we don't exist for eternity. I mean, that's also true the other way, right? We didn't exist for all of eternity. For all of
Yeah.
time, we didn't
Right.
exist. And then all of a sudden boom, we started to exist. And we did exist. It's kind of an on-off situation. And then after a very brief period of time, cosmologically, we don't exist anymore. I mean, that's a slightly different framework, but I think you may find it more comforting. We don't regret the eons of not existing. We weren't in hell. We weren't in purgatory. We clearly didn't mind it. We just didn't exist. And, I don't fear that period of time where I didn't exist before I existed.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think I've heard sort of similar argument or framings or whatever like that, and I think that does make sense. But then it doesn't. I don't know if it's super comforting because, or if it's like, comforting all the way because obviously you exist now. Like
Yeah.
you didn't like, and then so I don't know. I mean, now that you exist, now that you exist and you're conscious and so on, you're able to contemplate the fact that you won't exist. Whereas before you couldn't. I mean, you didn't exist, so you couldn't contemplate that you didn't exist.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I don't
man.
know. I mean,
It
I think yeah.
gets deep
There's
quick,
probably
doesn't it?
yeah. I mean, I think there's probably something about like just about like the nature of consciousness and the nature of time and stuff like that. I
Hmm.
mean, that like what does it mean to exist and so on. I mean, like it's just
So maybe
yeah.
we
Oh,
need
go
to
ahead.
compare it to some other ways of thinking first, because what we were both raised with faith. I got a lot of the heaven and hell stuff. Did you get? What was your experience? Because I don't think everybody gets hell. I
Yeah.
don't know what everybody gets. What was your sort of?
Yeah.
Uh, what was the afterlife as explained to you?
I mean, I guess when I was a believer, I always pretty much assumed I'd be going to heaven.
You got that good
uh,
the New Testament view was
yeah,
it's all different, man. Everybody gets in. It's a
yeah,
Everybody's invited. Y'all get in.
yeah. I mean, I don't think like religiously, like we were ever really. Probably we thought there was a hell, maybe, but it was more sort of like just sort of in the culture, rather than being explicitly told, if you sin, you're definitely going to hell or something. So I mean, I did think, there's probably some kind of heaven, but I think, I mean, the thing is that superficially it does seem like, the heaven is a good solution to the problem of death. But actually, when you contemplate that, it's equally frightening because it's like, I would think, like you live in eternity in heaven. And then, like, that's also frightening because you live for a billion years in heaven. And, like, it's not at the end then. Like, you still have another eternity to go.
Right?
Um,
It's always more time. Yeah.
so that's like that's equally I mean it's not a good answer really. Like it seems like superficially satisfying when you think about it
Yeah.
a little bit, but then as you kind of like think about what it would actually entail, it's also yeah, it's also frightening, I think. And I mean obviously like heaven would be the perfect place to be. I mean obviously being in hell for eternity would be really bad.
That would suck. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that
Yeah.
happens with religion, that what I found is that it's palliative, I guess, when you're on your deathbed or when someone close to you dies. But for most of your life, it's just this anxiety inducing thing. At least when the more Catholic, everything you do is bad. Everything you do is horrible. That's why that's why you make Jesus cry, and that's why you're going to hell, right? Like all it does is paralyze you and makes your time here worthless. And this is one of the problems I have with that religious view is that if you're living according to these arbitrary rules, right? I mean, all religion basically it's arbitrary. If you believe it's the laws come from God, it's just a sky tyrant who's coming up with arbitrary rules to bully you around and make sure you behave in a certain way that's clearly very different from the way he made you be. Unbelievably cruel. It's anxiety ridden. And it denies the importance of the little bit of time that we have here. Like part of what makes life possible to have meaning, makes meaning possible, is that it's bound. We only have a short time. If you choose to do horrible, shitty things, if you choose to do things that are wasteful or harmful, or things that have negative impact or no impact, um, yeah, you don't get that time back. If you choose to do things that focus on improving your life, uh, allow you to thrive, fulfilling the needs of others, that's a different way to spend what little time you have with these other people. And that, knowing that it's going to come to an end, you don't have forever. You don't get time to fix these mistakes or what you perceive as mistakes. That you don't get another go around. That is what makes the time that we have meaningful, makes it precious. So for me, like this denial of earthly existence, we're looking at it as just a test, debases what we are, the preciousness of what we have. So yeah, death sucks, but it it's got to, you got to do something with it, right? It's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's true.
Death sucks, but it should mean like your life shouldn't suck. We should try to make life on this planet an enjoyable experience. We should be allowed to thrive.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of like reframing it too. I mean, in that like the fear of death or something. I mean, yeah, it makes life much more meaningful, and it should hopefully make you less complacent. And I mean, like, I mean, I think a historical example. I know there's a book by Chris Cameron about black freethinkers in the U.S. And I think among like some black freethinkers and atheists and so on, like they kind of criticize the way like black religion was kind of, it could encourage like complacence, like, okay, like our situation's not very good right now, but we're all gonna go to heaven and like everything's gonna be fine. And this does have like, I can definitely see, like if you're in a really miserable situation with no possibility for hope, that religion could have a use there. But then it's also, it means you're not particularly as motivated as you might be to change things.
Yeah, it's the religion as the sigh of the oppressed.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
what are you going to do about it? Just get used to it. It's another day. Welcome to hell,
yeah,
sucker.
yeah, yeah. I guess yeah, right. Like it makes you pretty much accept your lot, and in the hopes for a better future, which in the atheist view is not going to come. So yeah,
But the follow
mhm,
up to that is that it's not, you're not putting your hope into this projected sphere, right? It's not this escapist policy anymore. Religion, that view of religion says religion is escapist, right? And I think Orwell points this out. Isn't it weird that like desert people's idea of heaven is a lush tropical garden? Like, what how what a surprise that people who don't have water, their vision of heaven is everything's wet.
mm,
Yeah.
right, right,
Uh,
yeah,
right. Whereas what a materialist view, like what atheism would focus on, is that without that, once you eliminate this this fantasy that comes later, you have to focus on the problems as they exist. So you can't say anymore, this will all be better when I get to heaven. You have to say, this is all going to be better when we fix it.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, I do think like confronting the reality of death then has positive benefits. I mean,
Confronting the reality. This is so, I mean, we had, I guess we were talking about two things there. One being sort of an afterlife, and the other being the denial of death. Do you often deny death?
um,
Do you think like, it's just not going to happen? It's not going to happen to me. I got another 100 years, 150 years.
yeah. I mean, I mean, I do sort of feel like we're right on the edge of like, in 50 years, maybe we'll be able to upload our
Yeah,
consciousness.
I knew where this
Like
was
we're
going.
just
Yeah.
like right on that point. And I mean, it's going to be a stretch maybe for us, but maybe, I mean, people in 100 years will get to do
First of
that.
all, it's going to be people the day after we die. That's always how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's got to be the day after someone dies. They're like, so
That's
yeah,
schmuck.
like they
Yeah.
just missed it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
The last man to die.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's coming. I mean, it's funny though because it's like, to what extent is it you? I mean, this may be too much of a tangent. Like, like if your consciousness is somehow uploaded to a USB drive or whatever, like, yeah, to what extent is
Yeah,
that you? I
dude. And
mean,
here's the thing with that: people talk about it like it's going to be great. No, as soon as you get there, they're going to be charging you rent for that space on the server. Don't,
mm,
right? There's
right,
no free lunch here. There's no you're, and you know
yeah,
how you're going to be
that's
paying that
true.
rent. You're going to be working for 'em. It's going to suck,
Mm,
right?
hmm. Yeah. Um, I had an idea for something, um, which would be that I think it's also something like about a fear of missing out. Like I'm just interested to see what's going to happen in the future. And so my idea was that, maybe like you would be frozen and then like every 100 years you could come back and sort of like you could be unthawed or sorry, thawed and just see what's happening, like did we figure out climate change and have we, are we like created world peace and so on. And then like you'd be like, huh, okay, we haven't or we have, and then you could go back to sleep for another
Yeah,
100
you just want to
years.
hibernate or fast forward and see.
Yeah,
You want to see tomorrow's sports scores today.
yeah,
You don't want to wait.
yeah, yeah. I mean, but then I think the issue, even with the uploading your consciousness and so on, it really just kicks the can down the road because like there will come an end in some way. I mean, maybe the computer will break down or whatever, and or something. I mean, yeah. So I think,
We
yeah.
transcend that sort of aspect, and we become space-time itself, and we are the ribbons of vibration in the universe that constitutes the universe itself. It's merely our consciousness that creates the universe, Nathan. That's how it goes.
Mm,
Yeah, and
hmm,
once
hmm,
it collapses once, it returns again and renews itself, because that's what we do. Now, this is a great way to deny death in any and all form. But if atheists deny death in that same way, right? Okay, is this? Do you think this is a good strategy for atheists, or should atheists be more examining about it? Right. So, okay, we can't deny death. We have to accept this as a fact, right? We are beings that live in space. We are beings that are made. We're physical beings. We've been dictated by our genes. We have a life cycle. We get older and we die, and that's it. And then we don't go to heaven, right? Both of these things are true, right? We die and we don't go to heaven. We die and we die. Does that give us, ought atheists think this way? Can a true atheist deny death? Is, I think, what I'm asking, Nathan. Can a true atheist deny
um,
death?
I would say no. I mean, I think, yeah, I think you could, like I said earlier, like you could maybe get around it by this whole uploading your consciousness or whatever. But again, I think it doesn't really solve the problem. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, we need to. I think we need to examine it. We need to understand it. As atheists, I don't. Yeah, you know, I'm going to take that position. Yeah, atheists need to accept death as a fact of life, and we need that in order to live, to thrive as humans. We can't. Um, I don't think it's possible to live a rich life if we don't examine ourselves, with the complete knowledge that it is only temporary. It's going to end sometime, and yeah, we have to live with that knowledge. That has to be part of how we make calculations about our actions in the world.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Um, there's this poem that it doesn't sound too pretentious. This poem that I like, and it was I read it, or I read part of it at my grandfather passed away last year, and I read part of the poem at his celebration of life. It's called "The Choir Invisible" by George Eliot, the 19th century novelist. But anyway, I mean, I'll just read the first like two lines or so, just because I really like. I think I think it's helpful. So she writes, "Oh, may I join the choir invisible of those immortal dead who live again in minds made better by their presence." And I think like I sort of like that idea, like you're gone, but like you live again, like in what you've done in your time on Earth. And I think like that is something that can can be like a motivating thing or kind of a comforting thing, like and it doesn't really rely on anything sort of supernatural. And I think it's like, yeah, I mean, like the his like the sort of story of humanity is just people trying to make things better, and then just incrementally doing that and hopefully impacting positively people around you and so on.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, everybody leaves that kind of legacy, right? Whether
Yeah,
we expect it or mean to or not, there's always some sort of impact we have in the world, and we can't deny that. Yeah, it can be little incremental ways, but that quest for immortality through acts, right, or monuments or whatever it is, that I mean, that's definitely a driving factor.
yeah, it could be done in many different ways. I mean, you could live on in the relationships that you've had, or maybe you've been a scientist and you've made some great contribution to science or something like that, or whatever. I think, yeah, there's a number of
Yeah.
different ways that can be done.
Or your cool Disco Dan from Washington D.C., who was a great, I think, God, he might still be around. He used to spray paint everywhere in town, and he would just spray paint Cool Disco Dan. Awesome. I mean, no one's ever going to forget that guy. You're always going to remember Cool Disco Dan,
No, that's true.
right?
Yes.
A monument to himself every day in every possible place.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to sort of want like admiration throughout the ages. I mean, I think it's like most people are not going to have that, where in like a couple of generations you will have been forgotten about. I mean, like there's no one left alive who knew you, and unless you're some super famous person or whatever, like your memory will not live on. But I think it sort of could live on like incrementally in sort of imperceptible ways, that you kind of you're good to the next generation, and then hopefully they'll you know be good to the generation after that. Yeah,
Well,
and
this
then it
seems
just
like
sort of
you've moved the
continues.
needle a little bit. Not the goalpost. It sounds like you've moved the needle from like an afterlife, wanting an afterlife, or never dying, to like being remembered,
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, it's slightly like a separate thing, I
right?
guess.
That's a good sort of fix that you've made. So you've changed yourself through your labor or your power, or something about you. You've changed something in the world, like either physically or structurally, right? Or like there's a rule named after you now, and that's why that's why your family's not allowed to go to the Denny's, right? Like, right, where
Yeah,
you've had this impact where like, oh yeah, that guy, that name, the Nathan Alexander rule, right? You want to have something like that, whether it's a book or a song, something that's going to live on after you, that only exists because of you and is tied to you.
yeah, but I mean, I think it can be in just in relationships you've had, and I mean, I feel like that is perfectly okay. I mean, I also feel like you'll be dead, and so you won't care if people remember your name. I mean, like, I guess like when you're living, maybe you hope you make an impact, and make maybe life in the future better for others.
So, I mean, a couple things to process here, Nathan. One is you've written a book. It's on shelves, it's in libraries, got your name on it. Your thoughts and ideas crystallized into a physical format. We're recording this podcast right now.
Yes, this is definitely
Legions,
going to last
people,
forever.
it's going to be around forever. People are going to be listening to it, studying it, being like, this is the way that we talk about free thinkers in the past. This is how they'll talk about atheists. Oh my God, do you know? Can you believe it? 150 years ago, people believed in God, and there were these few people out there who were brave enough
Yes.
to put out there
Yeah.
and record it onto this disk drive right here, this USB that we've uploaded to the Singularity, and we can listen to it and study it. And you would be happy just to have your family remember you?
Um, yeah, I think so. I feel like, I mean, like my book or something, in probably in a few decades, no one's going to be, well, I mean, not many people are reading it now, but in a few decades, probably no one will be. And eventually, all copies will just sort of disintegrate or
Yeah.
whatever.
Plenty of
Um,
copies of Race in a Godless World available
yeah,
now on Amazon.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Not going to be forgotten. It'll always be on the
yeah,
Wayback Machine.
yeah, right, yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like maybe you can make more enduring um, contributions like in the relationships that you have. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know either. I don't know
yeah,
where the focus ought to be. But it does point to if that general idea is true, right? Then atheists kind of have a commitment, at least to other atheists, then to find ways to preserve their memory, right? In
yeah,
like,
it's true.
okay, one, we've got to make sure that our material existence is good enough, right? That's job one because this is all we got. We're not worried about heaven. We're not. It's not that we can sacrifice ourselves and get a free ticket in. We've got to just make it better because it's all we got. And next thing is we got to work to make sure that we remember ourselves and each other. Remember what people did and help them live on beyond their death. Does that
Yeah.
would you
Hmm.
feel like that would help you achieve the immortality that you seek?
Um, it doesn't even matter to me, if people remember or care that it was me involved in any way. I mean, like, if you contribute to making the world better, like, what does it matter if you've got a plaque like on the sidewalk or whatever saying like you know Nathan Alexander was one of the people who helped do this or that. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't even matter that much to me. I mean,
Having a blue plaque wouldn't mean that much to you.
no. I mean, I think it's really. It's difficult, and I think this maybe we can like segue into another question is like, and I think it's related. Like, how did the living remember the dead, and like how should they remember the dead? Yeah,
Yeah,
to think of, yeah,
I
yeah.
know, and there's
What
a
do you
total
think on that
catch there
question?
if you think about people like, Kurt Cobain is an excellent example of this. Where like he's a dude who's remembered,
Yeah,
like incredible art. It's gonna last much much longer than it's. I think it already has. Actually, Jesus, yeah, I guess it would be this month, right? It's been 27 years, 28 years now. So it's lasted longer. His music's lasted longer than his life did. Um,
right.
but the flip side of it is like he was not a happy guy, right? He had a really
Yeah,
miserable
right.
life. Um,
Hmm.
and yet he's remembered. We don't. I don't think. My perspective on it isn't. Thank God he was so miserable because we get all this great art out of it,
Right.
right? Like
Yeah.
the point should be more on like we need to thrive. You can do both. You can be a happy, healthy individual and create good art. So, what did you want to move it on to?
Well, I mean, just to return to the Kirk, I mean, not about Kurt Cobain in general, but or in particular, but just for example, like I guess if he died or a celebrity dies, there's often sort of a public vigil, where people lay flowers or whatever, and light candles and so on. It's interesting though because obviously that's not for Kurt Cobain. I mean, he's not, or whoever, whatever celebrity, they're not there anymore. And I think it's like, but then what do we like? What are the living getting out of doing that? Um, but it feels like it's a necessary thing to do. But yeah, like what is the reason for doing that?
Well, one, it's fucking sad. I don't know if you've noticed that part.
Well,
Like
yes,
death when someone
yeah,
dies, it's really sad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that.
So there's that, you know.
Yeah.
And grief is
Yes.
a very real thing, right? And
Mhm.
how do we deal with it?
Yeah.
How so? I mean, you mentioned that your grandfather passed. You had that poem.
Yeah.
You had a celebration of life. How's that? What's
Yeah.
that like? How's that different?
It was different because it took place a couple of months after he passed away, and there was no religious element to it. It was just in a restaurant. I mean, it was just sort of like a, part of the restaurant was kind of reserved for us, and like, about a few dozen people. And I think, like my dad and my uncle and me spoke. And then I think other people, I don't know if anyone else did speak, um, but yeah, I mean, then like just to sort of get together, and it wasn't really a sad thing. I mean, he lived a long life and a happy life, and so on. Um, but I think it felt important because after he passed away, like it was hard to feel like it was real. And then I think like having that kind of ritual kind of thing did help make it a bit more real.
Was he
And I
religious
think like
himself?
no, I mean
I
no,
know the
no,
ceremony wasn't religious, but I don't know what his position was.
no, he wasn't particularly religious in any way. No. And I think like, he didn't want to have, any sort of, funeral kind of thing. So I mean, yeah,
And he
so
didn't. Did he? Was there any funeral sort of thing?
no, I mean, no, he was so he was cremated. So there was no kind of burial service or anything like that. So I feel like when someone dies, I do think that there's, obviously I mean, it is too bad that in some ways, that he wasn't around for the celebration of life. I mean, because, to hear people sort of saying all these great things about him or whatever. Um, and it's like, yeah, like I guess the celebration of life is not for him. I mean, it's not for him because he's not around anymore. It's for us. So I think that's sort of like an interesting thing about rituals around death, that like they're not for the person who's died, I guess. Um, in a sense, they're not for them, but they're for the living, I guess. And I think, yeah,
Was there
yeah.
anyone who brought religion to the celebration of life for your grandfather?
Uh, no, no, that was good. I mean, no one
Yeah, yeah,
like tried to say a prayer or whatever
mm,
or something like that.
yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a pleasant experience. I mean, I mean, not like,
Yeah,
not pleasant, but like, it was a good experience, and I'm glad that we did that.
mm. That sounds
Yeah,
great. I mean, it sounds like what we should be doing. Maybe
yeah,
not months after. I don't know about that, but yeah,
yeah. I think it was. Yeah, I mean, it's partly. I mean, the COVID just made it complicate things a little bit, but yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
um, yeah. What
Have you
was I gonna
been to
say?
many religious funerals?
Yeah, a couple. And I think the funny thing is, I remember going to one where it was a sad occasion that the person had died young, and like there was a priest, and at this time I was still kind of a believer, I guess, and I was really thinking like, oh, this will be good. The priest will give some way of reassuring us, and like the priest was talking about, I'm pretty like it was like the story of Job, and about like, oh, we can't know why God does the things he does
Yeah,
and stuff like
yeah.
that. And it's like, wait a second, like that's not reassuring at all. um
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, what has your experience been with
yeah. I mean,
sort
it's
of
been
rituals
things
around
like
death?
that.
Yeah.
It doesn't always happen, but there are those that are. You know, the I think the general thing like that is when it's it's sort of, it's part of their life. This is the ceremony, this is the tradition, this is the way where they've had all these other all those other markers in their life, like they're, people who were baptized, married, and buried
Mm,
basically in the
hmm.
same church, right? Like there's no getting
Yeah.
around that. It's a huge part of it. But there are those other ones where it's shit like that that's just fucking insulting to people, right? Where it's suddenly it's all about God all of a sudden, or Jesus. It's a reminder that we're all sinners or something like that, and that makes that makes me crazy. That's or when other people bring that to a ceremony that's about something else, which isn't, it's not ubiquitous, it's not the way every religion traffics, but when they do, it's just, yeah, that's something that's deeply disturbing to me, that you can use an occasion of people's grief to browbeat them into accepting this nonsense. And I don't think one thing I'm trying to think of in my life is if there was someone who I knew wasn't religious but had a religious ceremony, and that terrifies me. That's awful. I would hate to go down that road, and I don't know the appropriate way to behave in situations like that. Like, so this is a thing. I think what I'm getting to is like, how do, okay, atheists can have atheist ceremonies, right? Religious people can have religious ceremonies. Religious people sometimes bring really shitty behavior to secular ceremonies. Sometimes they bring really wonderful behavior, wonderful insights to secular ceremonies. Like, how do secularists respond, right? If you're an atheist and you go to a funeral and it's overtly religious, even if the person who passed is not, how ought we respond? And unfortunately, I don't have an answer
Mm,
to that.
yeah, that's a really good question.
The only example I can think of is Pat Tillman, who left the NFL to fight in Afghanistan. I think he died in Iraq after it, and he had his brother, who I think was pretty drunk at the time, got up at the service and said, "He, my brother thought all religion was bullshit, and he'd be so pissed at you people today." And clearly, that's not
uh,
the best response. I want to know what like a good
no.
response would be, what a good reading,
Yeah.
a good.
I mean, yeah, I sort of feel like, again, like the issue is, funerals or whatever. It's really for the people who are alive. So I don't, I mean, I feel like it's difficult. I feel like, for people who are religious, if they want to be comforted in that way, I think that's probably fine. But it is difficult though, like, if you sort of portray the dead in a way that they wouldn't want to be portrayed or something. That's where it's more difficult. And I also feel like there's sort of an asymmetry between like religious people at funerals of people who died who are secular and like atheists who are at religious people's funerals. I mean, like if someone were at a atheist funeral were to get up and say a prayer or something, probably people would maybe be kind of holding their tongues. But if an atheist were to go to a religious funeral and stand up and say like, you're all deluded or whatever, I mean, obviously
Right.
that would be pretty clearly bad
Right,
manners.
yeah.
I mean,
Don't worry, you
um,
guys. First, he's not in hell. Second, he's not in heaven either because there's no
yeah, right.
God. Okay, so chill
Yeah,
out
yeah.
about that. It's not going to go over
Hmm.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a difficult thing. I just like we talked with Lee Schmidt a few months ago, who wrote about free thinkers and the atheists and free thinkers in the 19th century, and how this was a super big concern of theirs, not to ensure they didn't have a religious funeral, and how so many religious people did indeed try and pressure the families or whatever to make it into a religious funeral. Yeah, so I think it's definitely a big thing. I mean, but then I sort of feel like, well, maybe we can transition. I mean, I feel like in a way it doesn't matter to me what happens after I die. I mean, I don't know.
No, but
I mean,
I
like
mean,
with my
it's
yeah,
two things there. One is you're right about the asymmetry. The asymmetry is a really weird thing, and it's why like secularism is just at a complete disadvantage when you think about like what the public sphere would look like, right? Because we don't have a message on this, right? There's no way you can't. It'd be kind of pointless to put on signs everywhere like there's no afterlife, right? I mean, what else are you gonna put? There are no witches, there are no demons, there are no zombies, right? Like it's fucking endless. So you can't really do it that way, and we see again and again and again where people where atheists or free thinkers died and were tagged as like having had deathbed
yeah,
conversions,
yes,
or
right,
like
right.
late in life they spoke in this way, which is clearly part of them like returning to their faith. It's like no, it's not. And you like that religious mindset where they can just do that and it becomes okay. It's easy, it's easier to do, right? There's no, it's yeah, it's totally unfair. It's very one-sided, and it's not easy to turn the opposite. You can't. I don't know. Maybe there's been cases. You know that Mother Teresa. I was with her right by her deathbed, and she beckoned me to come close, and I thought she was going to ask me to pray with her, and then she whispered to me like, "There's no God. I don't believe any of
Right.
this nonsense." It's like,
Hmm.
oh, now it makes sense, and we had a good laugh. Like, that
Right.
nobody's got a story like that. It's
Yeah. Right.
um
Yeah.
and yeah, like you're ever your crazy aunt who tells that long has a long prayer at someone's funeral, even though they're or at a wedding,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
That happens all the time. But what? How do you do that the other way? And then the thing is, the other way is that there are these great ways of like dealing with death for the living, like just how you talked about it, having a life ceremony, or I think we talked with Tom Watson last year now, almost a year ago,
Yeah. Yeah.
about writing secular eulogies. And that was really incredible. If anybody wants to do that, wants some examples, check out the old shows, get into contact with him. He'll show you how to do it. It's really powerful stuff and how like it's made a big impact on people. And it's great because we've got these like we're finding these pieces of how things that we can adopt as atheists to give us the things that we need to deal with the death of a loved one.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think that's
Yeah.
fantastic stuff.
Yeah. I sort of feel like religious people have more of a script built up for and the rituals and so on for how to deal with people's deaths, whereas secular people don't quite have that yet exactly. I mean, or it's not as concrete. I mean, people since the 1800s, if not before, have been sort of grappling with how to do secular funerals and so on. But it's not like we have a ready-made kind of guide of what to say and like what sort of readings to do and whatever. Um, yeah.
Yeah, but we can, change the content, keep the structure, change the content. All else fails. And the other thing, Nathan, to go back to the first point, I don't think atheists should deny death. We need to accept it. It's how we live authentically, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I don't think they should deny death, but can they fear death though?
Well, of course, it's awful. Like
Okay.
it's like fearing car crashes or getting
Yeah.
amputated or getting a disease or I don't know. What Nathan, you want a list of the things that I'm afraid of on a day to day basis? I don't know, like
Yeah.
snakes. You right?
I
Like
yeah. I guess yeah. I
just
think
like
the
the fact
different.
that
Uh,
any structure you're in at any moment can collapse in on itself. Do you
yeah.
know how many elevators there are in New York City compared to how many elevator inspectors there are? It's like
Mm.
literally, if they inspected 100 a day, they couldn't do it all in a year. They need to be inspected
Right.
every year. How are they getting inspected? The answer is they're not,
Right.
Nathan. They're
Uh,
elevators. They go really, really high, and then they have to go down again. They're a little
right.
metal box, and you can get trapped in it and then just fall. Think about that.
Mm.
Or don't
Yeah.
think about that. Don't think
Right.
about that.
No.
That's the answer. Don't think about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between like fearing, getting stuck in an elevator and having it fall to the ground, and death is that the elevator thing, it could happen, but it might not, or there's
It
a good
might
chance
not.
it won't. But death is definitely going to
Yeah.
happen.
Oh, it might
Uh,
not be like that. It probably won't be like that. It's going to be a really ordinary way of dying.
yeah,
Everybody thinks
yes,
they're
yeah,
going to get to go in the apocalypse or something cool, but nope, it's going to be something terrible and boring. It's going to be an
yeah,
infection. Oh, got my thumb got infected, and everybody kept telling me you better watch that, you better do something about that, and then I died.
yeah. I mean, yeah. Hopefully, it's a heroic death or something like that.
Just
Um,
cool,
yeah,
yeah. Just
yeah.
yeah, John Entwistle type death. You can Google that. I'm not gonna.
Okay.
Um,
I don't. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I'll have to look that up.
Well, this was an upper. Do
Yes.
you feel better about like not about like not denying death, about accepting it?
I think there's something. It's just intrinsically frightening. I feel like, and there's no good answer for that. Yeah, other than just to try and, I guess, to reverse it and to use it as like a motivating factor, or to realize that this is why our lives have meaning. Maybe we can talk about in the bonus section for patrons, like what happens to us after we die. And I think another thing, and maybe I
Oh yeah,
can
that's where
ask
all the
is
good
like
stuff's gonna be. You guys should
is
stick around for that.
this issue of assisted dying, like when you get, if you are terminally ill, like would you want to
Oh, that's a
have
great
assisted
one.
dying?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
um
hit us up with questions or answers. Nath G. Alexander on the Twitter. Great place to go for your comments. Or I guess on the YouTube page.
yeah, I mean, it would be great to hear people's thoughts
Yeah,
um
yeah. And don't
on
bother me because
these
I'm
issues.
more afraid of answering the
Yeah,
phone than death.
yes,
It's,
I can forward all messages to
yeah.
Todd.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Another thing to be afraid of.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about
um
that. About definitely about ceremonies. Great to know what people have done or plan to do for that. Um, we should probably talk to more people about that. Um, Issues with assisted dying. Love to hear about that. Euthanasia, or if anybody has experience with it. Should probably find people like that for the show. Love to talk to you on the show about that. And of course, big ups to our patrons.
to Lars, Debbie, and the AHS Plus blog.
Fantastic. Love it. So everybody else, make sure you've subscribed, pull the string, ring the bell, whatever you got to do, and we'll talk to you next time.